Rest in peace to Alvin Attles, the Golden State Warriors, former head coach, and a man who was a point guard there was known as a destroyer. He spent his entire career in the Bay, and he was a man's man. You know, when you hear about old school players, the reputation predates them because not only were they were liked on and off the court, they were like that, like Jerry Sloan. You know, in recent memory, you've seen Charles Oakley, and you've seen some other cats. But Alvin Attles was like that. As a matter of fact, when Golden State beat Washington in that finals back in '75, and Rick Barry almost got thrown out, Attles came to the defensive Barry and was ready to throw fists. That's what Wes Unseld and Elvin Hayes out there, and also marked the first time that two African American head coaches had coached against each other, because you saw him against Casey Jones. And it's one of those things that it's important that you remember that there have only been a little bit more than a handful of African American head coaches that won titles. And Alvin Allens was second only after Bill Russell at that time. So you think about that. We talk about how progressive the NBA is, and you talk about how progressive everything is and all that, and it's a players league and black and blah, 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 blah. But they haven't exactly been bestowed with a lot of black head coaches that have won all these rings to match the players. And just keep that in mind. Because while all African Americans rings that won as head coaches, Phil Jackson still got them beat by 4 or 5. You think about it. You think about the Red Auerbachs, that situation. So they haven't exactly been that progressive. But Alvin Attles and what Golden State did back then was pretty progressive, because he stayed on in some form of capacity and all the way to the age of 87. Very strong, dignified man, and always spoke his mind, had the respect. As a matter of fact, when he got inducted in the Hall of Fame, Rick Barry was there to present him, so it spoke volumes. I think it's very important, Anthony Edwards. If you don't know your history, you need to go back and watch and listen, because a lot of these guys paved the way, and we're not that far removed. We're talking like 50 years ago. So Joe Mazzulla just won the chip for the Celtics, against Jason Kidd. That's the second time the two African American head coaches have faced in the finals. Let that sink in for a moment. And you got more black coaches, but how many have won? And you think about that. If I read the list, Joe Mazzulla, Bill Russell, twice. Lenny Wilkens once, who was a great player. Both Bill Russell and Lenny Wilkens are considered two of the greatest players ever. So that chicken. Doc Rivers won it. Casey Jones won 2 rings, and he was considered one of the greatest players ever. You see how hard and what you got to do to not only be a black player, but as a head coach, and how much double you got to do. And Tyronn Lue won too. But let that sink in. What Alvin Attles was, how inspirational that was, because that was a big deal. Remember growing up back in the day and knowing his name because he was a black head coach that won, because that was not considered something that was the norm. And he won 3 years prior to Lenny Wilkens winning, and so on. You get to Casey Jones. But you see how the gaps are. You see the gaps. Because we went from Russell to Attles to Lenny Wilkens to Casey Jones. And then I think you go all the way, if I'm not mistaken, someone correct me if I'm wrong, till you get to Doc Rivers in '08 with the Celtics. That's a big old chunky gap. Then Tyronn Lue, 2016, Joe Mazzulla now. So that there's not a balance in the NBA for us black coaches winning. So it's important that you only understand the history. This is why history, skills, and understanding is so important. The kumbaya that they sell you on ain't the reality of what you know when you do the history of it. So I just wanted to share that, and rest in peace to Alvin Attles' family. Thoughts and prayers, and to his friends too, and the people that respected him. And he stayed with one organization, which is a novelty today. But it was there. He earned the respect. But it's important that you know this, because if you want to bring up some interesting facts about it, and that is his own video in its own self. How many African Americans have won, black coaches have won rings, and they want to act like the NBA is so progressive. Think about it. I always say this in sports, as I be telling it all the time with consistency. Until you have ownership and you have a say of something, You're just another field out there playing. So you got to get the more of the managers. You know what I mean? You have to have more. You have to have more. You have to have more of those kind of results. Playing is great, and it is important, but you need people calling the shots and then upwardly. All right, I'm done with this, and respect Alvin Attles. Peace.